Hello everybody and welcome aboard a GWR Class 150. However, it still looks like I'm travelling in the days of First Great Western, since they haven't managed to refurbish the train or even paint the outside of the train into the new GWR livery. Anyway, today is all about buses, as I'm going to be doing the North West Devon round robin. I'm not too sure what I'm going to call it yet, however it is definitely a round robin. If you watch Johnny Hoover Travels, you will know that he does quite a few round robin videos. He did the actual round robin operated by the Dartmouth Steam Railway and Riverboat Company, and he also did one including Okehampton. However, I'm going to be travelling into a part of Devon he hasn't really explored yet, apart from when he went on the South West Coast Path bus. I'm going to be doing the North West Devon round robin, which means that I have to get on a number 6 Stagecoach South West bus from Okehampton. Now, my original plan was just to sample buses in North West Devon. However, they don't run too often, which is kind of the idea. However, they don't really link up with each other very well. So I've just done a short circular, or a short triangle if you will, and if you look at the map, around this area of Devon. Anyway, here is my first bus arriving into Okehampton station, which is on the number 6 service bound for Bude, and is one of the Scania ADL Enviro 400s. I'll be taking this just short of Bude to Red Post, which is in the middle of nowhere. Here I am leaving Okehampton railway station on this number 6 Scania ADL Enviro 400 with a final destination of the Strand in Bude. Now, if I had sunny weather for this journey, it would have been fantastic, and funnily enough, on the day I'm doing the voiceover for this video, it is sunny and there's not a cloud in the sky. Unfortunately, this is a Saturday, so I don't think it would have been possible to have even done this journey. Anyway, on the day I chose to do it, it was a Friday, and it was raining cats and dogs, as they say in this part of the country. It was not very nice weather at all. However, I still decided to go and do it, whether or not it would have made a good video or not. I expect you'll get bored of watching this video 5 minutes into it. Anyway, here we are arriving into Okehampton town centre, which is kind of a nothing place. Most of the places along today's journey are kind of either villages or towns which don't really have much. Anyway, here we are passing through Okehampton town centre, where you can change for a number of other bus services. Here I am now, leaving Okehampton and going out into the beautiful Devon countryside. You would be able to see its magnificence if I filmed this on a lovely warm summer's day. Unfortunately, this was a cold, wet and miserable winter's day. Now without some of the smaller bus services, along with the 6 which is the only regular bus service in this part of the country, and even then it only runs every couple of hours, it does make me wonder, especially without a car, and even with a car, how would you get about in this part of the country? And every now and again, I think it's every year, your car has to go for an MOT, so then you'd be stuck without your car for a day or two. So even then, how would you get about? How would you get to work, or would you just have to stay at home? I'm not too sure, but apart from the lovely countryside views across Devon and across the rest of the beautiful parts of the UK, the only other useful thing about these bus services is that they serve places that otherwise you wouldn't really be able to get about in. For example, I just started filming some of the Devon countryside in the pouring rain, and all of a sudden we stop in the middle of a crossroads, only to find out it's an unmarked bus stop. Absolutely crazy, some of these things. However, these services can be very useful if you do live in this part of the countryside. For me, I'd prefer living in a city, especially with a frequent bus service. Here we are passing through the small village of Horwell Junction. Now, I'm not too sure, but it sounds like there was an absolutely gigantic junction station on one of the old railway lines in this area at this location. It must have been big for the whole village to have gotten the name from the station, Horwell Junction. However, I do believe just down the road there is a smaller village just known as Horwell, so maybe that had something to do with it. Anyway, Horwell Junction does get a few bus services along with the number 6, since local bus operator MD Coaches, or MD Minibuses should be their actual name, do operate a few weekly services from this location. Anyway, we're not too far now from Holsworthy, which is really the only major stop on the 6 service. Here we are passing through Holsworthy, which is the only major stop on the 6 service, and at first glance it looked like quite a small place, and it looks like a very small place if you look on a map, especially compared to places nearby such as Barnstaple or even Exeter, or even Okehampton looks big compared to this place. However, as we went through, I'm pretty sure the bus served nearly every street in the town. However, the town did seem a lot bigger than what it looks like on a map. Anyway, we are now less than 10 minutes from Red Post. Here I am arriving at Red Post, and there was loads of things to do here. I'm kidding, of course. There's absolutely nothing here, and I picked the absolute worst day to do this. Now, apart from the number 6, what if my next bus, which is the go-ahead number 12, which would take me to Launceston, didn't turn up? Just behind it there was a bus to Hartley, but even then, that's a small village, and that's only halfway between Bude and Bideford, and even then I'd have to get home. So I did wonder, what would I do if I was stuck here with a bus shelter full of water and weeds and the bus just went straight by? As you can see, it didn't. And the bus was a welcome sight. It was an ex-stagecoach Invara 400 and was quite a unique one. which, believe it or not, I think I've seen before, down in Helston of all places, down in proper Cornwall, not this part of Cornwall, which is just on the outskirts of the county. Now, I'm not too sure if this is the same bus or if this is just a sister bus. However, it seemed very similar and is a very strange bus. I'll be taking this all the way down the country lanes to Launceston. As you can see, squished between these two idiots who decided to sit right in front of my camera, you can see a small TV screen, that Go Cornwall bus, if you want to use the proper term for Go Ahead group in this part of the country, have put in a small TV screen so you can see what's going on throughout the bus. Looking at it, I'm pretty sure that there was nobody, if anybody, on the top deck, and there was only a few people on the bottom deck, so it did make me wonder. It must get very busy at the Plymouth end of the route for them to put a double-decker on this service, and this wasn't just a one-off. A bit later on, we passed a newer Enviro 400 MMC, which was also very empty and was definitely on the number 12 service. Anyway, it only took about half an hour to get to Launceston, and to be honest with you, the views were absolutely beautiful on this route, even on a rainy day, through dirty windows. Here we are passing the other Enviro 400 MMC vehicle on the route today, and as you can see, there was hardly anybody on it. As well as this, we passed a few other cars and a truck, and we passed a few more vehicles at the Launceston end. It does make me wonder, even with a service that gets busy at the Plymouth end, is it really worth putting a double-decker onto this route, especially when it could get stuck or damaged on one of these country lanes? So there must be a real demand for services in Plymouth if they're putting a double-decker on a route that goes all the way to Bude. The service didn't even get that busy in Launceston. Now, I'm not too sure if this bus had some work done to it or not, but it was just like how I remembered from Helston. It was a very strange bus, and it didn't really sound or look like an Enviro 400. Sure enough, it looked like a normal Enviro 400 Trident, but the interior was very strange, and the engine, you'll hear it when we get to Launceston, sounded more like an Enviro 400 MMC, just like the one we passed just a minute ago, going the other way. Anyway, here we are now, not too far from Launceston, believe it or not. Here we are now arriving into Launceston. Now my original plan was to go and get a bus across to Camelford when I was planning this. However, the bus to Camelford doesn't run very often, and I have to wait quite a while for the Camelford bus, and in the end I'd get across to Camelford and have to come straight back and get home quite late because To be honest, Camelford is quite away from Launceston and is a very long way from my hometown of Bridgewater. So in the end, I just decided to stay in Launceston and then get the 306 bus back across to Okehampton. Now my original plan after this failure, what I mean is I couldn't get to Camelford, was to go to the local Tesco to get a drink and possibly a bite to eat, because although I'm trying not to have any lunch during the day, I was getting a little bit peckish after all of this bus filming. However, all of the buses to the Tesco, including the Camelford service 97, was actually running late, so in the end I had to settle on Launceston Town Centre, which actually wasn't that bad. Anyway, that's enough of me waffling on about useless bus services to Camelford. Here we are arriving into Westgate Street, which is the main stop in Launceston and is actually quite away from the town centre. As you can see, this is a Go Cornwall bus, however, it still has a stagecoach interior. Anyway, here is this bus leaving on the 12 service bound for Plymouth, and when it leaves, it definitely does sound like an MMC, or am I just going crazy? Here I am now in Launceston Town Centre, which is very similar to Okehampton, but is actually quite a bit better. At first glance, when I got off the bus in Westgate Street, Launceston looked just exactly the same as Okehampton, a kind of nothing place with not very many things to do, or it didn't even look like it had very many places to get a bite to eat. However, if you walk into the town centre, where no buses actually stop, there is actually quite a few cafes, shops and restaurants for you to sit down in and have a little rest, and rest your weary bones if you're an old person. Anyway, here I am now at Westgate Street after picking up a very good bus leaflet from the local visitor centre, which I've been looking for a very long time, only to find that it was out of date. Anyway, here I am now at Westgate Street, and there goes a Stagecoach South Western 200 on the 85 service. Although Go Cornwall Bus mainly have the bus operations here and even have a small bus depot on the outskirts of town, Stagecoach do operate a few buses. Here is the bus I could have caught to Camelford, which is just your old Enviro 200 MMC. It was the short variant, and to be honest, not that exciting. But no, my bus was that Enviro 200 MMC you might have seen earlier in Okehampton. This was on the 306 service all day today, and was probably put on especially for me. I'll be taking this back to Okehampton. It got very tight at the end, however, I did manage to make my train. am passing through one of the small villages along the route. I think this was Lifton, however it might have been the next village on the route, Lewdown. I couldn't really tell. Now here we are joining the A30, which I found very surprising, especially since it's a motorway-like road that usually, very rarely, only single-deckers use, and I thought it was quite surprising, especially being this close to Okehampton, especially since we'd followed the A30 all the way from Launceston. However, I don't think the main roads quite meet up at the Okehampton end. We only took this for a short distance, only up one junction, and we were soon turning off the A30 into Okehampton town centre. Here we are arriving into Okehampton town centre. Now the timetable here actually gave us a lot of leeway, and this is where the bus actually made up quite a bit of time, and I was able to make my connection onto Exeter and finally back home to Bridgewater. However, I think some people did want to alight the bus in the town centre, but they pressed the bell slightly too late, and for some reason the driver didn't stop at any of the stops between the town centre and the railway station, which I found quite relieving as we made up a bit of time. However, I do feel quite sorry for those other passengers. However, they could just get the bus when it was going back to Launceston into the town centre. am now arriving back at Okehampton station, where my Class 150, this time in the GWR livery, was hiding, waiting for me to board and to leave. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and let me know in the comments, have you enjoyed this video, or is this type of video something that you would like to see being faded out? Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one, whether I'm on a bus or a train. Bye everyone.